Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending on where and when you're watching this broadcast. I'm Thomas Fessler, my friends, and this is Disclosure Tonight. Happy Monday, March 9th. Yes, we made it through the weekend, and more importantly, I survived cleaning the roof today on this wonderful house built in 1978. Ooh, oh, it was a fun time. Precautionary Tylenol has been taken on that note. Before we get things started, let's go ahead and welcome in our audience. Let's see who the heck we have out there. We have Anne Marie's out there along with April. Black Rectangle along with Carl Garrison. Good to see you. Craig Smith. Evan B's here along with Firefly and Flavio Eduardo. We got Geraldine Durazio and Jake Knott from State Farm. Good to see you, Jake, as always. JJ's here along with John and Kathy and Martimus. Good to see you, my friends. Megan Betts is out there along with Mikey D 2026. How about that? We got Mississippi and Patrick the Magnificent, who said he was going to stop in the back, but not enough people in the chat said, join the back. Do it, friends. Prism Films is out there along with Rony Deal. We got Scooby Dooby Gooby, Stephen Forbes, Steve Mateo. Good to see you, my friends. The Super Unknown, and Tree Saw TV. What the hell is wrong with my fucking mouth today? Holy shit. On that note, let's go ahead and jump in the back and let's say, Mike. How the hell are you, my friend?
Doing well. And we're going to have one hell of a show tonight. There's a lot of different topics to cover. It's going to be fun. Good conversation.
Yeah, it should be. There's a bunch of clips from different people, different folks that have put out there on X of the Eric Davis interview that we're going to be focusing on today. Said some interesting things, man. If you could stomach it 4 hours. Wow. That's one heck of a message, my friends, to listen to. On that note, let's... before we get there, Nick has raised his hand. What say you, Nick?
I like Thomas. Did you see that interview?
Hold on. You're sounding a little muffled, and I got to turn your volume up. Go ahead.
Did you see that Ross Coulthart clip that appeared on X, which he said that children were being experimented on? Do you see that clip?
No, I haven't. I might have, but you're still coming across really muffled, and it's hard to hear you, Nick. So I know it was something about Ross Coulthart and a clip. If you want, go ahead and send a link in the back. I'll take a look when we can, and we'll get to it, Nick. But I do have some clips from Ross to play, though. Thank you, sir. All right, let's go ahead and get to this, Mike. The
chat's not on.
Well, it is on. Should be. All right, we'll figure it out in a second. Maybe you can figure out your mic as well. Let's go ahead and get to this. We got an audience clamoring to see Dr. Eric Davis talk about some interesting stuff. Yeah, this was a really, again, a 4-hour video that was over on Jesse Michaels. It's a great, if you got 4 hours to invest into it, friends, and if you love Eric Davis like we do, let's go ahead and see what he has to say. Let's get this across. And, Interstellar. Put this up on YouTube. Thanks, guy. I appreciate that. Here we go, folks. Okay, intro. Eric Davis is talking about where are we at? Roswell's 100% real. Of course, we've known that before. Talking about his security clearances and need to know. He names key players with warnings. So sorry about that. I am wiped out. Here we go.
And before Hal Putoff hired me at Urtech. Okay, so then during my work at AFRL and then during my 15 years working with Hal Putoff, we got involved with the OSAP/ATIP, and then later on the separate attempt called ATIP, and then the UAP task force that Jay Stratton led. And using my security clearances, my need to know, my access, including my letter that I'm deputized by Jim Lukatsky as a representative of the Defense Intelligence Agency, I used all that leverage and authority to get into the crash retrieval program. I couldn't get access to see craft bodies or talk to the people, but I was able to get in to the people who handled all of that at a programmatic level and got confirmation that all of that was real, that all of it happened.
And what's your conviction level in, say, Roswell, for example, like that being a real crash involving non-human biologics?
It's 100%.
100%.
It's 100%. And it wasn't in Roswell, New Mexico. It was on the Foster Ranch in Corona, New Mexico, which is 30 miles from Roswell.
The disc landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico, and the rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Army officers say the missile, found sometime last week, has been inspected at Roswell, New Mexico, and sent to Wright Field, Ohio, for further inspection.
I had my information I got from Ed Mitchell at a Science Advisory Board meeting about the Greer briefings on the Disclosure Project at the Pentagon, and then Admiral Wilson coming back and verifying that the Roswell crash, well, the Corona crash actually really did happen. It wasn't a mogul balloon. It wasn't a raw wind radar test balloon project. It wasn't a weather balloon. It wasn't anything of that nature. It was a real craft of unknown origin that was adjudicated to be not of human origin or construct, and it crashed on the Foster Ranch in Corona, New Mexico. And then there's my work with Dave Grush when I was at the Aerospace Corporation. He was at the Aerospace Corporation building in Colorado Springs because he worked for their government customer, which occupied one or two floors there.
What was David Grush doing in that capacity?
He was, I think, a security contractor or advisor to a program manager. Dave was the NRO liaison officer to the UAP task force. So he took direction from Jay Stratton.
Wasn't he National Geospatial Agency?
No, I said the NRO, the National Reconnaissance
Yeah, you
Office.
said that, but I thought he was National Geospatial.
No, that was later.
That was later.
That was later. Yeah.
Okay, so he's the NRO liaison.
So during the UAPTF, he was the liaison officer on behalf of the NRO to the task force.
Yep. Got it.
So he worked with Travis Taylor, Jay Stratton. There's some other folks that don't want to be named, I know. So I just know that there's a core group there's a core group of 40 people, but there was a peripheral body of 1,000 people that contributed some of their time and labor and resources, and the other government agencies, DOD agencies, intelligence agencies, to feed information to the task force.
A lot of people ask about kind of circular reporting when it comes to UFO, testimonies. David Grush is what a lot of people, I think, are hinging their belief on, because he's just seems like a very kind of honest, above board guy who stumbled into a lot of this stuff. How many of his witnesses, his 40 witnesses, are more of kind of the hapless engineer type that just worked on the vehicles versus people who have, kind of secondhand or, third hand? No,
they're all firsthand. It's just that it's something that Eric and I had lots of hours and hours of conversations about 2 years ago. Not a single of them were a physicist.
So there you go. All the 40 whistleblowers came from Davis, and I believe Hal Puthoff is the other person, because there's another point where he mentions another person, not by name.
Well, David Grush already publicly said that Eric Davis gave him that list of people for him to look at, the 40 witnesses he interviewed. So Eric Davis knows full well what's going on because he assisted David Grush in that investigation.
Correct, yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, he's a fountain of information on this. Plus, anyone who knows Eric Davis for a long time always said that he is above board honest. The man can't lie. So that also gives him credibility as well, just because of who he is. That's something the audience should take into consideration.
Yeah.
I think what he's saying now is more than he's ever said before on this subject, very openly and freely.
With the Trump administration in place and disclosure potentially heading towards us at this point, hopefully we'll get it a executive order eventually, more than just a Truth Social post. But he seems to be a lot more willing to talk about stuff than he did before.
And be very specific about things. Whereas if you remember when the Wilson Davis notes got leaked, the memo, and then it was put on the congressional record, when he was questioned about it, he said very little. The only thing I remember, and we covered this at that time, that he admitted to publicly is that he was the author of that memo. And that was it. He didn't give any more information than that. Very tight-lipped.
Yeah, well, he just said that again. He even verified it again in this long 4-hour long format interview where he said, I wrote the Wilson Davis memo.
Do you know if in this 4-hour interview, Eric Weinstein has anything to interact with Dr. Davis on about this?
Oh, he does. There's a lot of stuff going on there with Weinstein. He pushes back an awful lot.
Does he?
Yeah.
Because from what I remember, Eric Weinstein was looking into this for the UAP.
Yeah, well, I've
And
got
said
another.
that- yeah,
Go
he
ahead.
said that they were trying to get him involved in it, but they kept blowing him off, and he kept questioning them. What scientists were directly involved? Because Dr. Weinstein knows a lot of these people.
Right, but if you remember the clip we played on Saturday, which we can play again today, he was pushing back pretty hard on the whole situation.
That's interesting. That
Yeah.
really is. That goes against what all these years he's been looking into. And
Exactly.
now with Eric Davis sitting right next to him, telling him all this stuff, he's hearing it firsthand coming out of Dr. Davis's mouth.
Right.
And he pushed back when he was sitting next to him.
Yeah, of course. That's what that was even going on when we were watching the show on Saturday, or
Okay,
watching during the show on Saturday.
Do you have any clips about how Dr. Davis responded to Eric Weinstein on that?
Not on this one, no, but I've got some other ones that have already been already queued up.
All right, perfect. Yeah, I'd like to see his response to Dr.
Well, we went
Weinstein.
through it word by word by word, and you were kind of saying, yeah, he's for it, but really everything that he was saying, he was countering the situation.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's odd.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was really interesting 4-hour interview. This is by what, Julian Dory?
No, this is by God, my mind just popped out of my
Jesse Michaels.
Jesse Michaels, thank you.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
One of these guys were
Last part of this.
physicists. They had some discipline in engineering in their profession. They were either electrical engineers, material scientists, aerospace engineers, aeromechanical, aerothermal, thermal control,
take
fluid
me now.
mechanics. Yeah.
Save that
There
thought.
wasn't a
because-
real physicist there. Nobody at the PhD level who is either an applied physicist or a theoretical physicist.
Save that thought, please, because that is going to basically be the entire kind of premise for.
Yeah, I guess he called it out, Mike. Yeah, in all the different programs and the people they found and the people of those 40 people, it's all engineers. None of the stuff that they have out there are any physicists or theoretical physicists. Could it be because they're trying to do reverse engineering?
Yeah,
What?
that would actually make a lot of sense. Darryl just raised his hand.
Yeah, go ahead, Daryl.
So, so I'm 2 hours into this video, this interview, and what he does. So Weinstein does. He's looking at him, at Eric Davis, kind of like out of the corner of his eye, like, "What are you saying?" Through a lot of this, and eventually he does say, "None of this makes sense." Blah 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 blah. Eric Davis responds in a very, very factual manner. I mean, I believe Eric Davis. What Eric Davis is saying, by the way, Weinstein lives in a different world. Davis is living in a different world in terms of everything he's exposed to contractually by different things. But he does. I was trying to. He does. There's a point in this in the first 2 hours where Eric Davis does state that some of the science that he had been working on for a long time is now different, and it doesn't make sense. And I think that's an admirable thing to do, because as time goes on, you learn different things. Why be stuck in the rut and not admit these things? Yeah, things change. So it's a really good interview so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that insight.
I'm sorry, the physicist thing.
Yes.
That's the reason why I buzzed in. The physicist thing. So he does talk about, so Eric Weinstein says, how is it possible that there are no physicists involved in any of these programs? That doesn't make any sense. So he pointed out that there are some other, I'm sure somebody else has probably watched this and is probably chatting about it right now, but he points out some other government work that was done in the past. And he said the way to figure out if there are physicists working on these projects are if and around Fort Meade, there are a lot of physicists living. Not necessarily that they work for anybody in particular, but they're all living there. Because in other government things, maybe here we go, Gene, maybe Gene Sir probably have something more to say about it. It was really interesting. His idea as far as finding out whether or not physicists were involved didn't involve asking. It was going and finding out, where do the physicists live? And all right, I'll shut up now.
All right. Well, Sirp, I know you're next, but I want to get to Gene first, and then we'll bring you in. Go ahead, Gene.
Yeah, so I was just going to add, this was something I'd commented on X about, and the idea, and it's actually, it just passed. Somebody had put it in the main chat there, that you don't necessarily need a physicist on hand. Physicists are good. When something is unknown, there is nothing for them to measure. When there is a craft, when there is something there to examine, it has to be taken apart, and then you have to figure it out. Online, somebody was on X, on the X post where I sort of broke that down. Somebody said, "Oh, well, you go into the hospital with a cardiac condition, and they say, oh, we don't need to call a cardiologist. We don't know what this is, so there's no need to contact a cardiologist." And I said, well, no, the difference is you go in. Sometimes you can go directly to a cardiac surgeon without ever having seen a cardiologist.
Bingo.
Right? So we don't need people in the room when you're doing an engineering task to sit and think about how the thing might work as they're trying to get down to the nuts and bolts of it. And I think he also misses the point that there are plenty of people within all of those engineering disciplines that have physics backgrounds as well.
Absolutely. So it's just coming down. You don't need a great analogy. If they can do a CAT scan, they can do a cardiogram, and they can see the blockages or different things that are going on, stuff they can identify. Yeah, it goes right to the surgeon. Absolutely. On many fronts.
Exactly. Or, you go in there and there's a major thing happening. They say, well, let's get a cardiologist to think about what might be happening. No, they just got to crack you open and get your hands in there. That's what they seem to have decided with the program.
Yeah, absolutely.
In medical terms, when they don't quite know what's going on and they're trying to figure it out, the procedure that they do, talking about cracking you open, is called an emergency laparotomy. And what that means is they just, at one point, cut you open to see exactly what's going on that the non-invasive tests don't necessarily show.
Yeah.
And then they find it when they go in there.
Yeah.
Now, I can tell you that when Dr. Weinstein was talking about years ago, trying to get involved with this program, or they wanted to recruit him, he tried to figure out, because he knows a lot of the top people in the scientific community, he tried to figure out, where is there a concentration of a lot of these physicists and scientists that could work on this program? And what he said is that he discovered that here in New York, in Stony Brook University in Long Island, there are a lot of the top people in the scientific field that had done research on electrogravitics that were all in and around Stony Brook University working. And he also said that in that area in Long Island, there are government contractors from the military industrial complex that they could be doing work for as well that might be involved with this reverse engineering program.
Where is Stony Brook at, Mike?
Long Island. It's Nassau, Suffolk County.
Gotcha.
I think it's Nassau.
And here I would think that if they had physicists and different people working on this for that kind of the stuff, that would be more around our national laboratories than it would be around a military base.
It's not a military base. It's a known university. It's a university that he said there is an unusual amount of high-level scientists in that university, in that area, that he feels might be working on a program like this. But that was his guess based on what he knows and where they're concentrated. So
kind of like when they're looking at cluster maps to determine if there's something in the environment that's causing people to get cancer, you can look at a cluster map for physicists to figure, wow, there must be something magical going on here.
Yeah, and he's a mathematician, so yeah, he definitely looks at statistics and clusters. That would be the first thing that would stand out. So yeah, that's a good point, Thomas. You're right.
Exactly. Now, if we can, Syrup, you've had your hand up, my friend.
I was just going to say, yeah, so I'm not sure when he says programs or program or the program or what have you, he was talking about 40 people. And Weinstein seemed to question, like, well, why don't they have the top physicist or blah, 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 or whatever. I was just going to say, I think it's arrogant to think like DARPA, Skunkworks, Northrop Grumman doesn't have the top people that they can get their hands on working on this kind of stuff, right? I think it's pretty arrogant. Like, well, I know this physicist over here, and he's the best. Well, I'm pretty sure DARPA goes out and gets the top talent they can find to work on this kind of stuff. So I think it's pretty arrogant to say, well, and I bet you $1 million that person that is working on this stuff, working at DARPA, working at Skunkworks, they don't have social media.
DOE.
Not gonna know who they are, and you will never know who they are unless this thing gets blown wide open.
The biggest problem the program, as they call it, has had, at least what people have said about or speculated about it, is that there is a very limited amount of people who are researching this, and any attempts to try and bring more people in who could have better knowledge and other understanding of it to try and move things forward. I think I've heard many times in the past that those kind of requests to expand, the knowledge pool of people coming and work on it, it's denied by the government because it's so compartmentalized and top secret.
And need to know.
But I'm willing to bet they already have the top guys. They don't need some extra people to come in and work on this.
Yeah, I guess you could say they've got the top guys, but sometimes you could get someone who's 21, 22, really young, and just knows stuff, and his brain just works and is wired differently, who may be able to see something and see it differently than the top guys who've been doing this, because they may have a bias based on their prior training and knowledge versus someone else coming and taking a look at it. It'll be interesting to see if they can start getting private AI systems to go ahead and private local learning models to try and figure out some of this stuff and move us forward.
Well, if you remember, Thomas, we had a scientist on the show several times that fell right into that category you talked about, that is very young, but very knowledgeable and very smart. Jeremiah Pop, who works with Falcon Space, is definitely thinking outside the box. So there are people like that. But to Syrup's point, I could say the nuts and bolts of the reverse engineering program on UAP studies, I guarantee you, is being handled directly under the Department of Energy and the national laboratories. That's where they're hiding this and these people. And
I mean, initially they talked about it, bringing this stuff. They were saying going to Wright-Patterson, but what's right next to Wright-Patterson? Battelle Labs, which is, and who runs all of our national laboratories? Battelle. It's actually Battelle Memorial, but yeah.
Yeah, correct. That's right. And we've done a deep dive on them in the past. So yeah, they're the ones running the national laboratories under the DOE. And piercing the veil of what the DOE has been keeping secret, good luck with that. Until Trump issues an executive order to declassify all this, you're not going to know for sure until all of the secrecy has been pushed to the side, specifically from DOE and the national laboratories.
Right. All right. So our next one we've got here coming up here, Mike, is I've got a clip of Weinstein pushing back on Eric Davis. What you're looking for. All right. Let's see where it gets into. All right. So they're talking about theoretical. Why don't they have theoretical physicists? So let's go ahead and bring this one up, and we'll see where it takes us. Here we go, folks.
They don't have tasking to hire a theoretical physicist to sit there and start thinking about the standard model, beyond the standard model, or anything. They don't go there.
Sorry, if an iPhone fell into the hands of a villager, the odds of a cobbler or a carpenter figuring out how an iPhone works is negligible.
Exactly.
So the same thing is true on your engineering. The Manhattan Project was an engineering project. There was a deliverable, there was a device.
They have physicists physicist.
for both projects. You're not giving me any understanding of why there were physicists in one and not the other. Wouldn't the same, even if you had a wrong, sorry, it just doesn't make sense, Dave.
There you go. There's the argument. Mike?
I can't say he's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Weinstein is making a valid point. Why wouldn't they have physicists and trying to understand material that was recovered like this? And so far, Dr. Davis is confirming there are no physicists that are approaching this subject. Not that he knows of, and we don't know what the DOE is working with. I'm sure there are plenty of physicists within the national laboratory systems that are working on this technology. I have no doubt.
Yeah.
But he's right. If you had an iPhone in the Wild West, a blacksmith isn't going to be able to figure it out.
Oh, they've talked about dropping an iPhone and apes find it. Are they going to be able to figure that kind of stuff out? And it could also go into the point where they keep on saying they keep on trying to reverse engineer this stuff. They look at it, they go 5-10 years, they can't figure it out. They put it back up on, I think Lou said this, they put it back up on the shelf for a while, and then when things advance a bit more, they take it out and see if they can figure it out again.
Because our level of understanding with material science, especially back then, wasn't anywhere near what would be needed to break this material down and have a better understanding of it, especially if we're talking about entirely new and different physics. Our understanding is limited, so we can't go beyond that.
Yeah, but it seems like they did figure out some of the metamaterials that make up the craft shell, where they had tried to go ahead and reproduce those on an atomic level, and they were dealing with delamination, meaning they would put one layer down of a particular element and then put another one down and another one down, and the whole thing falls apart. And they basically came back and said, yeah, we need to be able to do this stuff in outer space. It won't work here on Earth.
Zero gravity. Zero atmosphere, vacuum.
Yeah. Well, not just zero atmosphere, zero gravity. That's the key.
Right. And you can't do that down here on Earth.
No. Apparently not. Yet. It could be our process of us, how we lay this stuff down. You never know. Patrick, your hand is up, my friend.
Howdy. Yeah, I don't think that Eric Davis is off base with a lot of it, but to touch on what Mike was saying, I don't want to say that we know there's physicists involved, but we know of many places in this country that Eric Davis hasn't mentioned that other people have. And I hate always to be the hometown hero. I don't know Long Island that well, so I don't necessarily know the concentration of engineers and physicists they have. But in my backyard, pretty much within 30 miles of my house, we have Knowles Atomic Laboratory, which is one of the most protected atomic labs in the world. It's where they developed the engines that are used by Electric Boat. It's where they developed the fission fusion reactors. It was where a lot of the science that went to CERN came from. And one of the first small hadron colliders was at RPI. It was at a college in my home city right here, and then all that tech went over to Knowles Atomic Labs. The biggest thing with that end of the industry, though, is as soon as you start to study in any type of energy field, if you're working in nuclear energy or you're working in anything that would be considered exotic beyond what normal people touch on the daily, you have classifications on everything that you do. I mean, the Department of Energy owns that. Whether you came up with a new idea, if it's something that you were working on someone else's project, you're already being told by the Department of Energy that you are not allowed to discuss this. You are not allowed to spread this information solely because it could fall into the wrong hands. Where with an engineer, they're doing, I don't want to minimize the work of engineers, but their work is a lot less secretive. If they can have that many engineers out in the public talking about it to Eric Davis, they certainly don't fear losing a lot in their life, where the physicists, that is their life. Someone had mentioned that they're not allowed to have social media. They're not allowed. That's absolutely correct. Most people with any type of clearances aren't allowed to have Facebook anymore. About 2 years ago, a lot of people got kicked off of it. But I think that Eric just isn't mentioning specific places because it might be that he hasn't had anyone volunteer information. In the comments earlier, I was saying, I've never seen someone with clearances spill that much anecdotal evidence without fear of retribution. It doesn't matter if you accidentally mention the name of a place that you once visited, but you were on a task doing a job. You're in deep crap for that. So it baffles me that Eric Davis has this amount of information available to him, and I don't want to say he's this flippant, but he's this flippant giving this information out on a podcast that's going to have millions of people listening to it. This isn't the way we roll it out. We had a former president with a slip of tongue when they were asked about aliens. He kind of mentioned it, and then you had the current president say, "Oh, well, he just broke some major laws."
Yeah, you know what, Patrick? I don't think that was a slip of tongue. I actually think that was planned, and because those questions are given to him ahead of time, that's why there was no follow-ups and different things, and they know what they were going to go towards. I think he planned it, honestly.
I don't disagree with you. I think that everything is a psychological operation at this point. It's all for optics. But as far as the Eric Davises of the world, he's very dedicated to his studies. But at the same time, that leads me to know he's going to come across the Eric Sands once in a while, and he's going to give him too much credit, and it's going to put him in a position where, as a viewer, I start to question his credibility. How could someone with this many clearances just be divulging this much information to the public? It's crazy.
Well, maybe he feels more emboldened with Trump going ahead and saying they want to bring out the truth.
But he's done it for years, though.
I know, but lately, we were talking about earlier, he's ratcheted up this year. Would you?
Oh, he has.
Oh, yeah.
He certainly has. But even at that, though, I mean, the petty things that I know that I've gotten in trouble for, I mean, petty things. As I said, case in point, like I had accidentally mentioned a hotel that I was staying at. I think that what Eric is saying isn't necessarily classified information, but at the same time, it's not backed by absolute fact. How do I put that pleasantly? It's a lot of hearsay in the same circle that
it's a lot of stuff that he's talking about that we can't get the actual facts, because like when Lou Elizondo talks about stuff, you can talk about it so much until you hit the line and you can't go beyond that, because otherwise you're going to jeopardize your life. It sounds like for Eric Davis, at least, he's moved that line a little bit closer to what's actually been going on.
How does he get away with it, though? That's my biggest question, is how does somebody, in Lou Elizondo's case, okay, so Lou gave up a lot of his clearances.
How? You keep on going a little bit closer, a little bit at a time, and you see if you get in trouble. If you don't, you're fine. If you do, say, oops, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have crossed that line. Gene?
And Patrick, to add to your point real quick, I hear what you're saying, and Thomas and I were just making similar points about this with Eric Davis. But the 40 people, the engineers, that he put Grush on to talk with, Grush himself, under oath, admitted that those 40 people have direct knowledge of this program and the work being done and hidden from the public. And Eric Davis is now talking about those people that Grush confirmed are also real and have this knowledge. So, no, he's not just spinning stuff and saying that's not real. He's confirmed with what he's putting out there now.
Yeah.
But I think it's odd that, well, look, I can make a quick counterpoint. Thomas and I said earlier, for a while now on the show, when you have a government witness, a whistleblower, somebody that will come forward and speak publicly about what they know, but they're limited by their NDAs and their national security clearances. What it is that they are saying publicly has been authorized by the government itself for them to say, which means the government isn't having them talk about things that the government doesn't want the public to know. It has these whistleblowers talking to the public about things that the government wants the public to know. So the point that Thomas and I have made in the past is, are they in fact whistleblowers, or are they spokespeople for the government on controlled disclosure?
Okay, but the one issue with that I take is the Davis Wilson memo. That contained information that someone that has legitimate clearances had to deny knowledge of. His name was on it. He said that he wrote it, but he had to deny knowledge of it simply on the premise of he maintains his clearances as an admiral. So my point being is not to throw doubt at the engineers at all. There's certainly something substantive there, but the point being that Eric Davis is out giving what he claims is deep classified information, and there's no one in the government saying, "Oh, we need to shut this guy up." It gives me it's not to throw shade at him, but it has a bit of a Greer feeling to it.
Well, no, I don't know about Greer. I would never put Eric Davis and Dr. Stephen Greer in the same sentence together. But that being said, I'll tell you this. The two parts of Eric Davis and Admiral Thomas Wilson, the Thomas Wilson memo, and we know what was in that memo. We've gone over it at
The
length
Wilson Davis
detail.
memo, yes.
Yeah. So Admiral Thomas Wilson has disappeared from public life. He's gone dark. He would not respond.
He's retired.
To this. He would not testify about it. He's retired, but he would never admit publicly, because he was asked directly on many occasions if this actually was real, the memo, and had it occurred, and he would not respond.
Are you surprised,
Dr.
though,
Davis
Mike?
is. No, not at all. He's military. Dr. Davis is not.
Well, not just
You and
that.
I
People
talked
who are
about
involved in the program, if they are told, if you get in front of a judge, and whatever it is, with the clearance you have and what you know, you are supposed to lie.
You are legally allowed to lie under
Oh,
oath,
yeah.
according to Dr. James Lukatsky.
Yeah.
No, you're right. But again, Admiral Wilson is military,
Yeah.
and we know is a patriot.
Yeah.
And
If-
won't violate national security. But Dr. Davis is a different type of individual.
If we can get to it, Gene has had his hand up for a while. Go ahead, Gene.
I was going to make the point that Mike just made, that it really comes down to those two options. Either it's sanctioned or it's just a story. And, we see it in so many, Jeremy Corbell talks about, he saw classified information from the 70s, he's talking about 2027. Well, he's somebody who's never had a clearance,
Right.
who has no clearance, who's just a civilian, publicly stating that he has seen and had access to classified information. There should be a ton of people arrested around that. George Knapp's entire scenario about going to Russia, bringing back what were classified documents, should have him in jail in both Russia and the United States. The guy in Russia who organized it for him should be serving time in jail for treason under the Russian laws for handing over classified information. So it's either all a bullshit story, an over-dramatized story, or it's sanctioned.
Which do you?
How about it's a gray area as far as Dr. Davis is concerned, where he has the knowledge and we know pieces of that puzzle.
What
about
happened
he
when Jimmy
actually
Carter?
knows, and we know it's true. But what if at the same time it wasn't sanctioned by the government? Because he's speaking more freely now than he's ever done before in the past. He never spoke this openly to the public like he has in the past year. So I don't know if it's sanctioned, but some of it may be, some of it may not be. That's my point. That's how I see it. That's the feel I got.
Absolutely. Closing thoughts on you on this, Patrick?
Sorry, I just had to readjust there. I guess we're all entitled to our votes. We're all entitled to our opinions. And there's people that I put my weight behind that a lot of people had doubted a lot of what they had said, a lot of their credibility due to their history with the work that they did in the government. But at the same time, I know that they were tasked with very specific jobs that would lead to them with people doubting their credibility down the road, which is a game plan when you need to discredit anything that they said. If they said something very truthful, you want the public to dismiss them. I'm just dumbfounded, though. As you had said, Eric Davis is giving more information now. Dr. Eric Davis, I'll give him the proper respect. He's disclosing more information now than he ever has before. And he's almost doing it fearlessly. Now, that's to put it in perspective. Bob Lazar was in hiding, and he's had multiple members of multiple three-letter agencies try to make his life a living hell for the information that very easily could have been discredited and said, this guy's a crackpot. This guy's crazy. Where now we have this incredible information from Eric Davis, and you don't hear him saying he's getting stalked by the FBI. He's having black SUVs show up in his driveway in the middle of the night. So it's one of those things where the dichotomy of one person that said something so outlandish and crazy, but at the same time has documented that they've tried to off him. And then on the other side, you have someone that came out publicly with a letter that he wrote to a member of the military, or the member of the military replied to him from an inquiry. And there's been no mention of threats against his safety, his health. And I don't want to say it's a qualifier, but realistically, let's remember, we're talking about the government here. The qualifier is if you do something they don't like, you disappear. And he's putting a lot of information out there that sounds like if that were, it's either one of two things. It's either complete false, it's complete BS, or as you said, this is the way that they're going to roll the information out to us, is through voice pieces like Dr. Eric Davis. Yeah. There's no other way it would happen because his life would be threatened by it.
Oh yeah, he's out. He's got a public figure. He's out in the limelight. Unlike Neil McCaslin, former Air Force, he vanished. They'll figure that out eventually. But let's go ahead. We've got a clip here now. Now, Patrick, they've talked about it in the past that presidents are not briefed on UFOs. They talked about the only one who really knew about it was George Bush Sr. Was it GW, I think?
Jimmy Carter.
Yeah, and that's what I'm about to say. That's what I'm about to go ahead and play. Is we finally have verification coming from someone who is kind of talking about rumors. We've got Eric Davis, maybe a little bit more credible, going ahead and talking about it. Let's go ahead and listen to him talking about Jimmy Carter and good Baptist man, and how he was like psychologically, ontologically shocked by the truth. But sometimes you just have to realize not everything is how you expect it is. So let's go ahead and play this clip. Here we go, folks. All right.
What happened when Jimmy Carter got briefed?
I don't know what the aftermath is, but I know that Alonzo McDonald confirmed to several of us that in our group during that era, the OSAP era, that he talked to the staff that attended that briefing. He talked to Carter, and it happened. He even sent us the June, I don't remember the date in June, but I've got the document, but it's June 1977. It was an economic meeting in the National Security Council meeting rooms. But then when it came time for this classified UAP or UFO program briefing, they moved it to the Oval Office.
Do you know what the nature of the meeting was?
Wow, what we popularly known as Project Aquarius. And so I know that Alonzo did not dispute that was the code name. It might not have been, but it might have been. But he said, this was it. This is the real deal. This really happened. And by the way, I got from the Carter Library the attendee list for that date. And it shows the name of the regular meeting for the Economic Something Council, because that's what Alonzo McDonald's job is at the White House. So
is that public information?
The names of the people that attended were there. The only thing is 2 names and organizations were redacted. Out of all the lists, on 2 pages, only 2 got redacted.
Can you send me that?
Say again?
Can you send me that with the redactions, obviously?
I can send that.
That would be amazing.
There you go. He's got the documents. He's going to go ahead and share it out. Hopefully this can go ahead and lend some credibility to it. And I wouldn't think that Carter was the first person to be president to be briefed, or the last. There's a good chance that Obama was, Clinton was briefed. Then we had the Bushes, and then we have Obama, who's talked about it a lot. So do you think Obama was briefed on that, Patrick?
I think he was given somewhat of it, but I think that there was a course correction under Ronald Reagan when we realized how this information could really upset the public when it upset a previous president. They decided, okay, we're going to give a handler to this former actor.
But he talked about it a lot. He got it there. What if there was a threat from an alien force outside this planet?
And who was his handler as his VP? The former head of the CIA, George Herbert Walker Bush. So as you said, they'll hand him information, but they'll limit what he's going to be able to say. And I think that was the course correction, was we need to have someone inside the White House on the daily that's on the phone with him, briefing him. And I think that is what we saw with George H.W. Bush as the VP. I think that was the only reason. I mean, look at, he was, I don't want to say he was a horrible president, but no new taxes didn't turn out too well for him. We just needed someone in there.
Read my lips, no new taxes.
Yeah, read
almost
my
as
lips.
good.
Exactly.
Almost as good as when Reagan was in the Iran-Contra hearings, and every question he asked, he was like, well, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Because he didn't.
But we also know that as head of the CIA before he was vice president under Reagan, that George H.W. Bush was read in on this program. That much we know. So yeah, he could have definitely been handling Reagan at that point. That would make a lot of sense. And I'll add another point to what you said earlier, Patrick. In Lazar's case, when he came forward, they discredited the shit out of him. Government did that. We know that. And there's reasons. They didn't just make all of it up. There was some fugazi stuff that he was involved in that came to the surface, and they put that out there to discredit him. But in Dr. Eric Davis's case, you haven't seen anything to discredit him so far to date. Nothing.
Mike, in my opinion, though, you can't be a scientist unless you run your own brothel. It's
Well,
all right.
Talk off the show. I won't do it publicly, but it goes way beyond the brothel.
Oh, yeah.
We won't get into it right now. But anyway, the point is that in Eric Davis's case, no disinformation has come out publicly about him in any way, shape, or form. That's interesting. That tells me that whatever is coming out of his mouth right now, the government is okay with it.
Yeah. Well, in this next clip, guys, for us to debate and talk about, Eric Davis explains the origin of the MJ-12 document and that Rick Doty was not the senior Falcon. We know that. Rick Doty was like Sparrow or something, right?
He was Sparrow.
Yeah. He wasn't in charge. He was just one of the people along. So either way, minute and 32 clip. Let's go ahead and listen on this one and see where it takes us. Here we go, folks.
Somebody type that up on a old-fashioned electrothermal printer, and that's what you see in the photographs that Bill Moore took of that document.
Okay.
And it was said that the senior Falcon was somebody else. I know his name, I just can't think of it, but it's in one of my investigations.
Why do all these guys have bird names?
I don't know. That's just the choice of an admiral at the DIA.
Okay.
Nothing to do with the aviary. Aviary is more in the 1990s conspiracy era, or maybe the late 80s even. Or is that? So this is Senior Falcon was a DIA officer who was sent to communicate with Jamie Shandera and Bill Moore. He was the one that passed undeveloped 35mm film of the so-called MJ-12 documents. These are the first generation documents that were created by James Jesus Angleton's Chop Shop, his mole hunting document production factory. So that's the connection there, is that these documents came from the Defense Intelligence Agency. It was the Directorate of Human Intelligence Collection. And Admiral Edward Burkhalter was the director. And Air Force Colonel Roy Jonkers was his chief of staff. So those documents came out of there. Well, this whole thing about the films, the undeveloped rolls of 35mm film that would go to Bill Moore and Jamie Shandera, that was what that was about. Rick Doty was considered to be the junior Falcon, but he was not a legitimate mediator of information from the DIA to Bill Moore. He was more coming out of AFOSI as a counterintelligence agent, trying to throw him off the track.
There you go. An acknowledgement.
Somebody type that
where
up.
Rick was, Mike.
Actually, Rick recruited Bill Moore as somebody working for Rick, and when he was at AFOSI, and what Bill Moore was doing at the time was reporting on the UFO community, like the conferences that they were holding in public, and any information that Bill Moore became aware of was channeled back into Rick Doty, and Doty had a file on that, and that was going right to AFOSI. Eventually, that information came out that Bill Moore admitted to in a conference that he was working directly for Rick Doty, and he was giving information on the community to the government. And then Bill Moore was chastised for that. But that all came out in the 80s. So the shit hit the fan at one point because of all of this. And it has government hand all over it as far as any information that Bill Moore had and was putting out there. It was tainted because of him working with Rick at the time.
Exactly.
And this is 45 years ago. Long time ago.
You've got the pulse,
Ancient
Mike.
history.
Appreciate that.
Yep.
Now, but I've got another video for us to go ahead and play, but Mike, I have to play this one. This is in my feed, and I just have to bring it up because it's a good one. You heard of Nigel Farage. Okay, this is for our UK audience out there and people across the pond. You know, Nigel Farage was over meeting with Trump this weekend, right?
Good for him.
Good for him.
The
Here we
Restore
go.
UK movement, I think, should be successful.
Here we go, Mike. Knock, knock. Who's there? Not you. Oh,
Nice.
yeah. You gotta have a good one. You gotta have some fun on sometimes, my friend. And we love our friends in the United Kingdom. We're an international show. So, all right. All right. So this is a Facebook post from Dr. Eric Davis from several years ago. In a Facebook group. He describes the info he gave to Grush as breadcrumbs. Grush took that and ran with it. 4 years later, Grush had enough information and had spoken to enough witnesses that convinced him that the UAP crash retrieval. Let me get this up here since I'm reading it from Joe Murgia. Where does this go? Let's just do it from here. All right. Breadcrumbs. Grush took that and ran with it. For years, Grush had enough information and spoken to enough witnesses that convinced him that UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program was real. Davis said, Grush heard rumors. Mark Cheyenne, I interacted with David Grush from 2020 to 2022 as part of my job. I was one of his classified ICIG whistleblower complaint witnesses. Because he got the breadcrumbs from me and a close colleague, and I believe that the close colleague has held put off on where to find the UAP crash retrieval program. So Grush heard no rumors. He uses access to the special security system to locate and talk to the industry crash retrieval personnel face to face.
And as Dr. Davis just said, and the Jesse Michaels interview, those individuals that he talked to were all engineers working on the program. Now we know.
Well, they're trying to reverse engineer, right?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, we know a few engineers ourselves that are working on metamaterial from Roswell. So,
Oh gosh, yeah, absolutely. All right, I've got one kind of a combo before we move on to other things to talk about tonight. I got a bunch of stuff to get to. Let's. Is this the one? No, we've got that one. Lakatsky. All right, so I've got this is the teaser from the intro of the overall 4-hour podcast from Jesse Michaels. Let's go ahead and play this. It's a good one, and I'll give you an idea. If you're interested in watching this, or interested in the subject, I'd highly recommend. This will give you an idea of what this podcast over on Jesse Michaels is about. Let's go ahead and bring it up and play this teaser from the intro to the show. Here we go, folks. Let's bring it up.
A wormhole on demand?
You should be able to. That's what my research showed.
So walk me through, how do I get to Alpha Centauri by engineering a traversable wormhole?
Well, you're going to create...
Eric Davis, you are kind of synonymous with UFO science. You have an amazing background at Aerospace Corporation, Earth Tech. You've worked with NASA Lewis. Eric Weinstein, you are a math PhD from Harvard, who has dared to present a theory of everything in physics.
The alleged Roswell crash was real. There was a there. It really happened.
How is it possible that something this large that involves this many people has zero incontrovertible pieces of evidence?
Do you dispute the existence of atomic weapons because you can't access it?
I can't access it.
Oh, you can access it.
I have no idea what we just did.
It is a crash retrieval, non-human intelligence, non-human technology.
How many of those crash retrieval program people have you met?
I think it's 5 total. There's no physics in it.
It doesn't make any sense.
5 crash retrieval programs, Mike.
Right.
Different agencies.
Yep. Well, we know DOE is one of them.
Well, DOE, but then you've got the CIA with the OGA, the Office of Global Access, which apparently they've renamed at this point.
Oh, they renamed that a long time ago. That's typically what they do with these secret programs.
And they scrubbed all the results from Google, too. Amazing how they can do that.
Including some of those Google Maps pictures we show under the ocean of those objects that they had up. They didn't you show? We had some that was there originally, and then it was all erased.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah,
That's
we
true.
know the government.
But
does
you
that
can
as
still go back in the time machine, if you want to call it, in Google
And
Maps
find it.
and see what it used to look like.
Right.
They didn't completely scrub it, just from people trying to look for it the easy way. So let's play some more. Here we go.
Say again?
It defies the laws of physics. We haven't made progress. We have no physicists. How are they doing on this
How do we
project
take it apart?
decades in?
This thing is not a Manhattan Project, and you know what the Manhattan Project was.
Not one of these proposals excites me. They're boring as sin. I don't like GR. Why are you not tweaking it?
I don't have intuition on how I could tweak it.
Are there propulsion modalities that you're high conviction in that transcend chemical combustion?
Yeah, it goes way beyond even advanced.
Are you aware of reports that we are being
monitored?
Made to know that we do not control our space?
Yes.
When you see smoke at this level, the question is...
Well, yeah, of course we don't control our space, Mike. Let's just bring this one up here really quick. We've never had domain over our skies, over our water, over our land since the United States was formed. I don't think any country on this world, Mike, has had control because they've always been there. The non-human intelligence has always been superior to us. They've allowed us to get around for what's going on, but when they want to do stuff, we have no way to stop them, do we?
No, we don't. But it goes, I think, beyond that, because he also mentioned space, but not just airspace, space around the Earth. It's outside, outer space.
Yeah, of course.
So, and we know the work that our good friend Dr. Beatrice Villarreal has done that recently.
Yeah, but she's talking about those transients. I mean, we've heard reports about a year and a half, 2 years ago at this point, from someone relatively high in pecking order of things who have talked about craft that come in out of nowhere really fast, stop at our upper atmosphere, go down to Earth, and we're observing them while they're going down to Earth. And when they go back up again and leave, Mike, they are leaving at the exact same coordinates that they left our atmosphere of, which is way beyond any technology that humanity has. And then it freaking zooms off again.
That's correct. And we have sensors that track that movement.
That Space Force can see to track the movement, yes.
Right. But with the work that Dr. Villarreal has done, it also showed that there are hundreds of thousands of unknown artificial objects in geosynchronous orbit around the Earth. So we don't have control over outer space or our own airspace.
No, hell no. Right. How about the moon?
Right.
Why do we stop? Who kicked us out and why? What do we do? Do we overstay our welcome? Do we take things home we weren't supposed to? You never know.
Well, if Artemis ever gets off the ground and we end up going back there and building a base, we'll soon find out what the hell is going on.
Hey, but don't forget, China has had a rover on the dark side of the moon for a while and doing a bunch of cool exploration that NASA has missed out on because, well, they have a limited budget and they were spreading it too thin. Let's just say that. They weren't just focusing on space. Let's just say that.
Yeah, they weren't looking to pursue it, I believe, and China is. That's the key difference that I can see.
And if there's a reason why we're going back to the moon, it's not because it's there. It's because China's there.
Right. That's exactly right. But either way, it doesn't matter because now we'll get more information than we've ever gotten in the past 60 fucking years that this has been going on.
Oh, yeah, exactly. You never know what they're going to find when they're up there, and maybe they'll tell us. But let's play the rest of this. Here we go.
What is the nature of the fire? There are different fires.
But
there's a smoke machine.
Or there's a smoke machine.
Right. Epstein was running many different programs. It wasn't even Epstein probably running. Look, I believe we can leave. And if you believe you can leave, you have to imagine that you're being visited.
Ignition sequence start.
Interesting interview, everybody. 4 hours. You may have to go ahead and take it in slices, but it sounds like it's one heck of a great program, Mike.
Well, it is. And I could also tell you that with his pushback, Dr. Eric Weinstein also said in another interview that he genuinely believes that the only way that the human race can survive is if we achieve the ability to leave the planet and explore the cosmos, or we won't get past our sun burning out. He's right. So
let's see if humans can,
we can do it.
Let's see if humans can survive beyond Earth. That's the question. Are we too tied? Is our rhythms, our blood, everything that goes along with it, our DNA, are we of the earth? Can we go ahead and move along? And if we do, what will we end up turning into?
Well, I think that's very far down the road at this point. Unless Elon kicks the Starship program into high gear, we're not going to really have any idea.
Well, it sounds like that what NASA's trying to go to. They're trying to get us back to 3-month turns on launching rockets. And how often are they launching Starships?
3 years. Oh, no, the Starships, every, what?
3 months.
Similar, no? Yeah, 3 months.
So Elon is hitting the pace that NASA used to hit in the Gemini program.
60 years ago.
Yeah, and he's hitting it now, and he's knocking it out of the park.
He is.
Whereas NASA, they can't even handle 3 years in between launches.
They should contract him to take over the space program for NASA.
Give it some time. You'll see what happens.
But Patrick has been waiting patiently with his hand up.
Patrick, what's up, my friend?
Okay, one thing I wanted to touch on real quick was the 5 agencies thing. There's no less than 5 agencies looking at this, and the reason for it is it came down to the exposure and the type of things that they saw. So every branch of the military maintains its own record and analysis of the data that's collected of unique sightings, unique data. But it comes down to, I'm going to use that reference that they said, where there's smoke is there fire. Let's say there's 20 different fires. This isn't to say that non-human intelligence is only coming across in one form. We are an amazing planet for every other planet out there in our solar system, much less within our galaxy. So we've got plenty of eyes on us, whether they're within our frequency, outside of our frequency, whether they're super terrestrial and they've been here long before us and lived at the bottom of our oceans and evolved on our planet. There are so many different sources. So the necessity to have all of these different agencies working on it isn't based on just secrecy alone, but there's so many different angles that this can become at. And furthermore, I honestly believe we're dealing with more than one thing. I think that to believe that it's all so simply prosaic and it's all coming from outer space and it's all one race of different intelligent life is foolhardily. I mean, we're chasing at this as if we're looking for little green space aliens. It's silly to believe that it's all one united thing. On a basis of, we didn't know what infrared was up until 120 years ago. We didn't know how to measure infrared till 80 years ago. And no person on this planet can open their eyes and say, hey, look, there's infrared. It doesn't work that way. But it's there. It's outside of our frequency to acknowledge it, just as radio frequencies are. And within a radio frequency, you have an entire dial of different ways that it's going to project itself into you. You turn the dial and you've got a completely different station. So the reason that we have different agencies working on it is much more interesting than, oh, there's secrets. There's a lot more there that they can't answer to. And the biggest problem that the governments have, the reason they can't come full face with it, is there's going to be questions. They're going to have to face the media. They're going to have to answer to, why was it in the Vietnam era when we had night vision that the early night vision was giving people, they dismissed it as being psychological confusion by the lights that were created from the night vision. But at the same time, the guys that were seeing it were saying, no, this is very real stuff that we're seeing. We're seeing things that aren't there when we take it off, but they are interacting with physical things that are present when we have the night vision on. Well, that's completely different than someone out in a farm field seeing a flying saucer up in the air, which is completely different from stuff under the ocean, which has been there by evidence tens of millions of years. So I don't want us to take this path where we think there's one answer to this and there's one level of disclosure. There is so much that we don't know, but we're putting it all in one basket, rolling the dice and hoping that an answer comes out. And it's not that simple. I don't want to overstep anything, but keep that in mind. We are putting a lot of stress onto one idea that humans have generated to be one answer that the universe isn't going to give us. It's going to be many answers. It's going to be many different paths that we have to understand, and a lot of areas in science that, while we can start to understand how, we don't know why. We don't know the genesis of it. And these are things that I'm sure a lot of the governments of the world want to be able to conquer before they come to face and say, hey, we have something to tell you. So it's much more than one simple thing. There's a reason that you have so many agencies, some of them that can be loose-lipped. You know, when you have physical material, just as we saw in that video there, where you have physical material of stuff that crashed into a field, you can't deny that. So you're going to put engineers on that. You're going to put that in the newspaper. You're going to make people happy. One of the reasons it disappeared was because the answers beyond that can't be given that we don't know. We simply don't know. There's so much there. Thank you. I think that the whole lore of UFOs and aliens and NHI completely misses the fact that none of these things have to be related at all. Simply stated, a lot of them might not even be acknowledging the existence of the other non-human intelligences that are present. This whole idea of them being at war with each other, that could be a possibility.
They talk about potentially if we do get craft that have crashed, they say, oh, it's a gift to us. But potentially the reason that they're crafting is you have multiple types of non-human intelligence that are battling out for competing over their control over Earth.
And as true as that could be, there could also be more that don't even know of the existence of them. They may be looking at us and we're just as alien to whoever's looking at us, and they can't see the things that we've seen simply because of the way that our technology and science has led us. We've been led down one specific path, but there's so many different paths and all of them have their own answers. That's all I wanted to add.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Very good point, Patrick. Look, I could also make a quick point as well. Dr. Albert Einstein, at the turn of the 20th century, he had theorized about time dilation, but it took nearly 60 years because at the time that he proposed that theory, he couldn't prove it. But it took nearly 60 years later that science was able to establish that, in fact, time dilation is a real thing and it's true. So it takes us time to finally catch up to what's out there and what we know exists until we can prove it. So we're on the right path, I think, at this point. Let's see what comes out.
I would think so, my friend. Keeping our eyes on, let me get this over here. No, wrong one on that one. All right, let's get to it. I've got some clips here of, where did he go? No, not that one. I've got some recent clips of, of Tim Burchett making some comments about President Trump and his conversation with Trump. And this gives us a little bit more than the 25-second clip we heard from Matt Lazo before. Let's go ahead and play this and talk about it. Here we go, folks. Let's get to it.
I had a pretty long conversation with the president just a couple of days ago. And I said, Mr. President, I just want you to release everything that I've seen. Mm-hmm. And because he asked me, he said, you think they're real? I said, something's going on, Mr. President. We're spending billions of dollars on something. And, I have a pilot, one of the best ones in the world, military pilot. He said, Tim, that thing he goes like this, 14 feet from my canopy. 14 feet. So that tells me, he didn't say 15 like you and I would say.
Right.
20 feet, 10 feet. He said 14 feet.
Do you think he has, I guess, one, does he have the authority to do it? And are we going to actually see something?
He 100% has the authority to do it, but he doesn't know. I don't think he'll know what to ask for. And myself and some other people that are close to him are going to be talking to him about the right things to ask for.
There we go. That is some interesting news, Mike. It wasn't a brief conversation. He had said he had a fairly long conversation with Trump about this.
And Trump obviously told him that he's not really aware of any of this, but there's something to it. So Tim told him he'll tell him right where to look.
Right.
I thought that was promising.
Well, don't forget, wasn't Trump briefed by Grush back in the day?
Yes, he was. Presidential daily briefing during his first term.
Yeah. And framing it, I got to say this, framing it about, they're spending billions of dollars to cover something up. There's something to this. When you talk about billions of dollars, that's something, dollar signs, that something Trump can relate to, especially because wasn't Burchett put over like the Doge?
Yeah, he was. So they got him into overlooking finance instead of the task force and getting into UAPs. But take a look at the frozen screen above you, where Burchett is sitting. You see it? His right hand, you see what's on the table right next to him?
A gun?
That 9mm semi-automatic pistol.
Yeah.
It's within arm's length of Tim. So I think that's a very cool picture.
Well, it's right behind him is a banner for Smith & Wesson.
I see that.
It must be a Smith & Wesson, huh?
It must be. I could tell it's a 9mm. but it's right within arm's length of Tim, and we know Tim carries.
Oh God,
wherever he goes. Yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah. All right. Let's get past this. All right. Before we get to our next one, we got one last clip here. We've got a short clip, Mike, that's going on about the missing General Neil McCaslin, who was down in New Mexico when he vanished, left his house without any of his digital equipment. Basically, so he's got no digital fingerprint when he left. Didn't leave out the front door because there'd be other Ring cameras in the area that would catch him moving away or getting away. Went out the back and they found a piece of clothing, at least, back there. But where did he go? What's going on? It sounds like, this is not just someone walking off in the desert getting lost. This really sounds more and more like we're dealing with an abduction or something that went on to get this guy out of there more. And I doubt it's something to go ahead and take him and haul him away for some you never know what they've done. So let's get to it. So ABC News UFO expert, retired Air Force General Neil McCaslin, missing since February 27th. During his career, he oversaw classified space weapons programs and was considered an expert on UFOs. So if he was taken away and they left his wife potentially there, it could have been a reason that, okay, we've got you now. We want the information. And if you don't give it to us as we torture you, we can go after your wife next.
Sounds like leverage, Thomas.
Oh, yeah, I would say so. Let's see just in this little 30-second clip what they have to say. Here we go.
The FBI is part of the search for a retired Air Force general in New Mexico. Authorities say 68-year-old William McCaslin was last seen February 27th after leaving his Albuquerque home on foot and leaving his phone behind. During his career, he oversaw classified space weapons programs and was considered an expert on UFOs. The search for McCaslin is spurred by concerns about unspecified medical issues. Clothing has been found near his home, but it's unclear if that's his. The FBI is
interesting to say, Mike. How many people go out without your phone, without your iWatch? Usually those things are like hand in hand, and you do it all. You wear it all. You bring it with you all the time, unless there's a reason why you don't do that.
Yeah, unless somebody he may have known reached out to him and said, "We want to meet. Don't bring everything. Leave it at home." And his wife said that he always brought his watch and his phone with him. It was unusual that this time he left it behind. And it's not because he has dementia or Alzheimer's. She confirmed that
he has no memory problems whatsoever.
Right. So that was done on purpose, not by accident.
Of course.
And since it's 10 days that they have been searching for him, I can tell you, if he was out on that trail and he got lost or disoriented or injured, they had canine units searching for the body, and they had FLIR on helicopters looking for any sign of him. They would have found him within 48 hours.
They had dogs out there searching for him. They didn't find anything.
They found nothing. That in itself makes this more than simply a missing persons case.
Yeah.
And the national security aspect of the knowledge that he has is something that should be taken more seriously.
I mean, if we're talking space weapons, we're talking about the Star Wars program my sister worked on when she was back at TRW. God, this is back around 85, 86 or so, 84, 85, somewhere around that period of time. I mean, that's when he was doing his stuff there. And we had a lot of stuff we were putting up there that we didn't tell people about.
No, at the time, it was a big secret, and he worked directly on it. And his wife, who was left behind, was a colonel in the Air Force, and she also worked in the military industrial complex as a contractor. And also, we know that the meetings that came out of WikiLeaks about General McCaslin and meeting with John Podesta, that his wife was present at those meetings with him because there were emails that came out of those leaks.
Yeah.
So his wife is well aware of the work that he was doing and what it is that he knows. And she has been making statements publicly. I think we covered this on the last show.
Yep.
That she said that he wasn't abducted by aliens, if you remember.
Yeah. Well, there's been a lot of people in the UFO area focusing on this. I think this is the story from News Nation is one of the first times we actually have had a major news channel cover this. It hasn't been, it's like it's been missing in the national beat of news and what's going on in the world.
Because it's a very well-known government figure that's had his hand in anything to do with the government's work on UFOs and space. And he disappeared mysteriously. And again, I'll go back to, if he was injured and got lost, it's 10 days. And with the level of searching that they've been doing out there, they would have found the body. They would have found him injured. There would have been witnesses that saw him on the trails. There's nothing. That in itself is very odd as well.
Yeah. Well, we'll see where that goes. Our hearts and wishes are with everybody on this one and see where it goes. Now, in our next piece, we have an interesting interview of John Greenwald.
Okay.
Talking about, with Michael Schellenberger interviewing Greenwald, talking about how the government is, lying about their interest in UFOs. They act like, Mike, they're not interested. However, we know they are interested in this shit. So let's see where Michael Schellenberger takes this.
Yeah.
There we go.
John Greenwald, welcome to Public.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me. I view this topic in kind of two different segments. You've got that pre-2017 era, 2017 being that benchmark when we learned about what was called the ATIP program. A lot of controversy behind it, but the New York Times ran this article and all heck broke loose on the general public finding out what UAPs even were, why the terminology was there, and so on. Pre-2017, I could find no gaps in the intelligence community where they just didn't care about UFOs. Every year and decade had at least something. DIA, every decade through the 2000s. NSA. I think post-2017, they were in this corner. Okay, let's just openly admit it, get that out of the way, and just let the general public forget that we've been lying for decades. And then now it's a whole new set of lies, deceit when it comes to this topic. They were lying. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It doesn't matter if you're a skeptic believer or like us somewhere in between. They were lying about their interest in UFOs, and past their 1969 closure of Project Blue Book, that big investigation that they did, they stayed active, found files that should not exist, not 1 or 2, 10 or 20, but literally thousands and thousands of pages of documents that should not exist if the government was being honest. And that included heavily classified information on sightings, on craft that they were seeing that they could not identify, even pieces of material that was inside the walls of the CIA being analyzed by the science department. And they said that they were, I'm paraphrasing here, but secretly watching and keeping tabs on that topic. So you can prove a heck of a lot in that pre-2017 era. I think what happened, if you ask me my personal opinion, they got caught so many times, for those that were paying attention, that once all this stuff broke in 2017, they had to start addressing it because they were caught. Then the mainstream media really started talking. Fast forwarding to post 2017, then they were forced to really tackle it. And that's what they did. They started talking about it. Calm down, John Q. Public. We're looking into it. And it's a very sensitive area, but we don't see any signs of aliens or any type of this, that, or anything else. So essentially, calm down. That's their nutshell version. But when you really start digging into the documents in that post-2017 era, you realize that facade of, hey, we're being transparent with you now. We're telling you we're looking into it and there's nothing to see there. It is quite the opposite. And it is a deepening issue that gets worse and worse with every week, month, and year that passes, that the transparency is lessening. It's not opening up, getting grander for us that we see more. It is worsening. And you can see that the military does not want to talk about this. And those press statements and what they're saying at press conferences and stuff like that is very much not the same as when you look at the evidence. This is a highly classified topic. They do not want to talk about it. And when you look at what they want to say, when you juxtapose that with the documents themselves, a lot of times it doesn't align. And the national security here, out of all the topics that I have dealt with, is one of the not only highest levels of classification, but it's one of the worst topics to research because they want to lie, deceive, and use every trick in the book to keep people like me getting as much of the truth out there as I can. And that to me speaks volumes.
Now, I think there's a lot of people, John, that just go, look, these are obviously secret weapons programs. They don't want people to know about secret weapons programs. That's really all there is to it. What do you say to people that say that these are the secret weapons programs and you're reading too much into it?
Yeah, I hear that a lot. And I feel that is a very dated and lazy explanation. And why I say that is we've heard that explanation for decades. Before I was even born, they were talking about, a lot of this is top secret aircraft and so on. But when you look at the evidence and you look at the history, you look back at all those documents. And again, this is now touching back on the pre-2017 stuff. You're not matching up the top secret programs and flight tests and so on between the major, even government documented incidents. You're not matching up all of that stuff from the top secret world that at this point, 50, 60 plus years later, we should probably be able to start matching that up. Because sure, there's top secret and classified programs of craft in the sky, but eventually the general public will hear about it. It may take 30, 40, 50 years, but we hear about it. So we're at that point that when you talk about these sightings that remain unidentified from 40, 50 plus years ago, that are documented in government files that even remain heavily classified and redacted, pieces of material, again, that was paraded into the science offices of the CIA post Project Blue Book, nothing can be matched up. And even though the CIA has claimed, and some skeptics will even try and tout this point, others that are a little bit more honest will recognize that it doesn't hold water. The CIA has tried to say, oh, the sightings in the 1950s, that was us with the U-2 spy aircraft. And the reality is, no, it wasn't. The U-2 didn't get off the ground until, 1954, I think.
Mike, we're even hearing this kind of stuff going on today to where we've got Gillibrand and others trying to say everything we're seeing is coming from RO as well. That was all us. But realistically, 95% of the stuff we see out there can be explained, but that 5% of the stuff that's out there remains unexplainable, at least unexplainable to the public, while the government really may know what the hell they're looking at there. What do you think?
I think that Schellenberger, who was doing the interview with Greenwald, should have brought up the Immaculate Constellation report that he got from Jeremy Corbell with Matthew Brown, who came forward publicly, that discussed the government had that secret program involving monitoring any and all UAP craft, not prosaic craft or secret weapons programs. And it was all detailed in that report that's now in the congressional record. And Schellenberger testified about. Why isn't he mentioning that? And those videos that Lou had gotten out in 2017, the 3 videos that were all over major mainstream media that the public has seen, that changed the scope of what the government could get away with lying about. After that came out, it completely changed the narrative, and they're not happy about it. We know they've been trying to put the genie back in the bottle since then, including when David Grush testified under oath in 2023.
Yeah.
So why isn't Schellenberger making points like that to back up what Greenwald is saying? It's odd.
I hear you, my friend, as I saw Patrick in the back going ahead and shaking his head no or something to this part what we're talking about here. What are your thoughts, Patrick?
All I got to say is, if you remember, I think it was 4 years ago when Kiki first fell into the forum of
Kiki,
ufology.
you're talking about Kirsten Gillibrand, a.k.a. Kiki, her nickname, yeah.
I had told you guys, don't trust her. She's a turncoat. She'll lie to you. She'll pee on your back and tell you it's raining. I said that years ago, and here it is, boys. It is. Chickens have come home to roost. I got one if you want to see it. It literally came home to roost with this. Her house is out my back door, literally. Don't trust her. She's not to be trusted. Never to be trusted. I don't care what she says. If she's talking about something, soon she will spin it into a way to get more funding for a pet project that she's working on. Oh, this is defense. All of Arrow, everything to do with it. You're going to see it's the discombobulator. Okay, Kiki, where do we get the technology?
But why isn't, but question really quick, why do you think she's not stepping in to reel in Arrow to say, hey, you were supposed to give us a yearly report last year. Hey, you're over a year late for almost a year and a half late for volume 2 of the historical report. What's going on? I'm one of the people who got you going. Where's the work product? You are bound by under law to deliver, and they haven't.
You're not bullshit. She's not bound by law. She gets
no, not she is, and Arrow is actually.
But the thing is, she doesn't care. It comes down to who's funding her next election. That's the way she is. When she first ran in New York State, she promised that she was all about gun rights, this and that, blah, 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 blah. First action, first vote she had. She voted against the Second Amendment. She is a turncoat.
She's a Democrat. She's blue. What do you expect?
It's not left or right, Thomas. You know.
No, but when they vote for stuff, sometimes it really comes down to that.
Anyone that gets money from the military defense contractors is not to be trusted. And I said it years ago. Whoever's signing the bottom of the check is telling her what to say. And that's why she brought it up to create an optic at that time, because at one point it generated interest, and I'm sure it generated more revenue for more research to somebody that was putting money in her coffers. And now all of a sudden, oh, no, it was all our stuff. It was our technology. Don't trust her. She is not to be trusted ever. That's all. It's just I can't stand her.
I'm right there with you. When we first heard about what she was doing, there were a lot of people in Disclosure tonight who were all good for her. I was kind of there. But as soon as I saw what she's doing, and I was like, you know what? I don't trust her. And I've held that for that position for the longest time. And Patrick, I'm right there with you. All right.
I can tell you that when she did the first, hearing with Sean Kirkpatrick, and there was, 3 other people at that hearing with her? When she bent over the table and spread her cheeks for him, that did it for me. You're absolutely right, Patrick, about her. She is definitely somebody that's not looking to be an advocate for disclosure. Yeah,
and they throw their dog shit over the fence, too. They're those kind of neighbors.
Hey, you know what? Someone in the chat just said Fetterman. What did they say about Fetterman here? If I got it here. What was it? Fetterman is the Democrat last hope. The Democrats would slay the princess bride, princess, and ride off with the dragon. Well, here's the thing. Perhaps when Fetterman had that stroke, that part of his brain that made him a deep blue Democrat went away. You never know, because he did change for the good, for the better. Let's get this.
And he hasn't obviously been an advocate for disclosure either.
Not yet.
Nope.
We'll see where it goes. Here we go.
Let's see what Trump does. He's got to write that executive order.
We need that more than anything. We need an executive order more than what we need is a freaking equivalent to a tweet. Here, let's play the rest of this interview. Here we go.
It was. So you've got half of the decade that's already wiped out from their statement that can't be the U2. And there was no major UFO documented sighting or anything like that that was connected to any known flight of the U2. So to make a long story short, it's lazy to make that claim from skeptics because no evidence supports it. Now, does that play a role in today's conversation? Absolutely. Could they be using these phenomena, I use plural for a reason, to help cover up this percentage of classified programs? Absolutely. It's a counterintelligence agent's dream to have this type of topic to just muddy so many other areas. But the root of this has a phenomenon or phenomena, if you ask me, at the root of it that can't be explained by classified programs. It just can't. Small percentage, sure, I would absolutely concede to that. But the magnitude of what we see with the evidence, no. And if it was true, my final thought on that explanation would be that we would not see the level of documentation, secrecy, programs, and funding, all of this intertwined to cover up some classified programs. I don't buy it. I don't see the evidence matching up to that claim.
Were you surprised by President Trump's announcement that he would be releasing UAP, UFO, and alien documents?
Well, we didn't see the rest of that, but interesting conversation, Mike. Always great to see Schellenberger out there, in this case, interviewing John Greenwald, who has spent his life requesting FOIAs from the government and getting turned down many times when we know the information is there, like from the Navy. They've got 100 photos with regards to this, and they refuse to give any of the information up, Mike.
And videos that they could release very easily and refuse to do that as well.
Yeah.
We've covered that here on the show.
Oh, gosh, yes, many times.
Yeah, so we really do need Trump to finally get moving to bring this information out to the public. Because it isn't at this point a matter of what we know. It's a matter of what the public knows or doesn't know at this point. They need to become more educated. And then you'll see things start to shift.
Exactly. Laura Campbell, your hand is up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt your flow. It was so good tonight. But Mike, you had talked earlier about the university. Got more information for you. A lot of the students that graduate end up at Brookhaven Laboratories, and then they end up getting funding, invited with Medallion Fund, which is also related to Renaissance Technologies, which is a hedge fund. But if you know anything about the way that Medallion Fund, the average Joe can't get into it because it's developed with quantum computing, so they outperform any stock that's out on the market right now. So they're all intertwined. That's how they get the money, and then the Brookhaven, and yeah, I just wanted to add that.
That's a good point, and I guess that probably is one of the things that led Dr. Eric Weinstein down that path.
Yep.
Laura.
Yep. That's all.
Yeah, he's a smart man, so yeah, he picked up on that.
Yeah.
Very good.
Absolutely. Now, Mike, we've got another clip coming up. Two more of Tim Burchett on these are on the Benny Show. This is where the first one, the president, I just hope that the president would disclose everything that I've seen in every skiff I've been, every confidential conversation. We've got this clip followed up by another one. Let's jump into it. Here we go, folks.
Oh, he's wearing the same jacket.
Okay. Hold on a second. People are saying there's no audio from this. Oh, well, yeah, maybe. Let's fix this. Sorry about that, folks. Let me get this fixed. Here we go. That should take care of it.
I just want to know what we're spending tens of millions of dollars on. I don't know if there's little green men or flying saucers out there. I've talked to the best pilots in the world, which are American military pilots that fly $500 million worth of aircraft in an incredible amount of training. And they've told me, one guy said, he said, Birch, that thing was 14 feet from my canopy. Or he said, Tim, actually. And I've talked to an admiral who had an instance. I've talked to military men and women. I've talked to just regular Americans. Something's going on, Benny. And, you know, the Bible talks about it as a, you know, God created the heavens and the earth. And also, it's Ezekiel saw the wheel. If you read first chapter of Ezekiel, it pretty much describes a UFO. It talks about a wheel within a wheel. Now, you know, the classic UFO is the saucer shaped and there's something on top. And I've never seen anything. I've not seen any. Well, I take that back. I've seen things, but that's since I've been in Congress and I'm not allowed to discuss this. I would just hope that the president would disclose everything that I've seen in every skiff I've been in every confidential conversation, every picture I've seen, every video I've seen. I wish that he would release all those.
Would that change the world? I mean, would that change people?
No, I don't think so. I think we just realize that we're one grain of sand in 100 million beaches. And I mean, if you think we're the best that God can do, I think you greatly underestimate God.
Wow.
So
Donald Trump said, like Barack Obama, he's sharing classified information. When Obama goes on a podcast like this and goes, aliens are real, you know, and here's where they're not being kept.
And then he backtracked.
Which is very, you know,
I just don't get it. I don't get it. I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried.
You know, one thing I want to pause on really quick here. Every single time they've come out of a skiff, after they've had briefings and different things, right, Mike? They've always come out and they always say, we didn't get anything, right?
Yeah.
But now we got Burchett actually talking the opposite. They do show us stuff. We have seen a lot of stuff. They have told us things, but we just can't talk about it.
Right. Because they can't violate their oath, their NDAs, and their national security clearances.
Yeah, exactly. Patrick, go ahead.
You know, right where he saw that, the briefing too, that was the Eglin Air Force Base one. That was the one that split up and scared Matt Gaetz out of taking a position in the cabinet because of exposures that he could have from his past with this information that he had. Up to that point, he wasn't a threat to this. That was the Eglin Air Force Base meeting.
Only to teenagers.
That was his weakness. The teenagers.
Yeah.
That's why he left.
Yeah. But they brought it out. But either way, let's go ahead. We've got about, close to 50 seconds left. Here we go.
About it. I know I die right now. I'm a Christian. I'm going to heaven. Mom and Dad are going to be waiting on me, and it's going to be a great reunion. Yeah. And I'll be with Jesus. I'll be with everybody. But I'm not worried about it. I do not worry about it. If they have this incredible technology and wanted to get us, I think they'd already gotten us. So I don't think that's a worry. So, and I know people make fun of me all the time about this issue, but it has polled over 50%. I've been in rooms with doctors and lawyers, fellow members of Congress, that have seen things, that believe in it, and they just don't want to say it publicly, and I'm just an idiot, I guess. So there's your sound track. There's your sound bite. I'm an idiot. Everybody already knew that. Senator Kennedy already told me that when I walked in. Burchett, you're an idiot.
Hey, at least he's got the right kind of an attitude. We'll go ahead and see. All right, in our next clip, Tim Burchett, again on the Benny Show, is talking about UFO and demonic forces, getting deeper into the book of Enoch. He's not worried about the demonic forces in her life. I'm worried about them in some of my friends' lives, but honestly, I don't worry about it. So let's hear him in this 1 minute clip go ahead and talk about a bit more about spirituality. I think this is after him laughing after he had said he's an idiot. So let's see where it goes.
I know you're a Christian man. Final question: does this? Annapolina Luna says these are spiritual entities, and I think our audience. We polled the audience when Trump announced this, and they tend to believe this as well. Do you?
I know she's quoting the book of Enoch, which is one of those books that's not included in our Bible, in the current Bible, and I've read those chapters that describe whatever. Associating with our females and things. So I don't know. I'm where I need to be spiritually, and I'm not worried about demonic forces in my life. I worry about them in some of my friends' life, but honestly, I do not worry about it. So I just want to know what we're spending the money on. That's our role in government. It is never the role of government to decide what you or I should be able to handle. I think that's wrong.
Okay, more disclosures. All right.
Trump's the guy. Transparency.
Maybe it'll happen tonight. Maybe it'll happen.
There you go. He's calling out Mike. Trump is the guy for transparency, and hopefully he will follow through on what it is. I'm not seeing any things that are pointing against it other than not yet. It's not like they haven't been busy.
Well, yeah, that's true. There's a lot going on in the Middle East with what we're involved in this conflict right now. So, yeah.
Yeah.
That's another aspect of the world around us.
Oh, yeah, just a little things kind of blowing up and burning and other kinds of stuff happening at this point in time.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Hitting them right where it hurts, right in the wallet.
Oh, yeah. Hey, at least gas prices are going to come back down because, oil has crashed down to the $80 point at this point, Mike. I think it was $87 earlier today from a high yesterday of like
115.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it needs to come back down, and we need to make some headway with what's going on in Iran.
Yeah.
Get rid of that regime once and for all. But you heard they made the former Ayatollah's son the new supreme leader.
Until the Israelis find him.
Yeah, until he ends up with a bullet in his head or a bomb in his building, yeah.
Yeah. Daryl, your hand is up. Go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, they made him the leader, but nobody's seen him. Amazing.
I wonder why. Well, Thomas, didn't you say that he's got a lot of different locations all around the world?
Yeah, he's got multiple mansions on Millionaires Row in the United Kingdom, but of course, Starmer's not going to do anything to interrupt on that. And plus, he also has a bunch of places in Spain as well. And, there have been pictures out there with him and his wife, and it's not like they're following the same culture that they have in place in Iran and expect everyone else to go ahead and follow.
Which means it's going to be a big transition for him to start to live more of a Sharia law, highly religious cleric type of existence, which is the opposite of how he's been living up until now.
Yeah, of course. It's good for the goose. It's good for the gander. Apparently, that's going to happen. Talking about things going boom. Yeah, this has happened potentially earlier. This was just showed up on X, and I believe this is a relatively large explosion kind of going off, lighting up the sky. Kabam, kaboom. Yeah. We haven't brought up yet. The Straits of Hormuz are open again. Oil is flowing again. So we'll see where all of this stuff goes, Mike. It's all just a matter of time. We're sitting on the sidelines watching, to say the least.
That's right. And reporting on it. We also know that Trump guaranteed the shipping lanes through the Sea of Hormuz, that if the military, the U.S. Navy, is going to have to escort some of these tanker craft through, they will. And the U.S. is also banking the insurance.
Right, because Lloyd's of London, G-O under Y, backed out.
Right. But Trump said that the U.S. will step up and cover these companies for their equipment going through the Sea of Hormuz. So that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, Mike, have you heard a little science thing here as we're wrapping? You've heard that like 90-something% of the cheese in the United States is now made with GMO-based cultures. It's no longer made the way they used to make it hundreds of years ago, or 100 years ago, for that matter, 50 years ago. It's all with a GMO base. I think Pfizer, one of the companies, actually owns it. But you know what? What's coming next? Chocolate.
Well, that sounds disgusting.
Yeah, and that's why people have a lot of problems eating cheese when they shouldn't have a problem eating cheese. But on another note, yeah, they're actually going to be doing the same thing with chocolate. Yes, okay, so lab-grown chocolate is coming to the shelves in 2027. Oreo, Cadbury, and Toblerone are already funding the Israeli biotech producing it because the lab is cheaper than on a farm. Cadbury has been quietly replacing your chocolate. This dairy isn't milk chocolate is legal. Wait, the dairy milk isn't legal chocolate in 27 countries. The cocoa butter was replaced with vegetable fat, a cheap blend of 6 industrial oils. What remains is diluted with polyglycerol. Soon that'll gets to be replaced. You'll be eating cells grown in a pharmaceutical tank. Kind of like what they're trying to do with fake meat around here. Cadbury dairy milk in the UK and many markets has included vegetable fats like palm and shea oils alongside cocoa butter for years. UK EU regulations allow up to 5% of non-cocoa vegetable fats in chocolate if it meets a minimum cocoa solids of 20%. And other standards. In America, the standards, of course, are much lower. That's why people talk about good chocolate coming from Europe, coming from Germany, comparing to that waxy taste we have in the United States, or milk chocolate. Only 10% chocolate liqueur and 12% milk solids and 3.39% milk fat are required. So if you think you're getting chocolate from Hershey or anybody else these days, United States, no, you're getting disgusting food.
It is disgusting.
Yeah.
It's. I stopped eating chocolate a while ago.
Yeah.
Because I didn't like the way it tasted anymore. So you're
no.
right about
I mean,
that?
you even had Reese's. The guy, like the Reese's peanut butter cups. He's come out in the last month or so saying they've destroyed his family's product. It doesn't taste like it used to. It's made with all these different, non-chocolate ingredients and fats and stuff that, has destroyed what the brand stood for when it was initially acquired back in the day by Hershey's.
Right. Well, listen, when we were kids, we used to eat the Reese's peanut butter cups. Peanut butter and milk and chocolate was the commercial that they used to run back then. And it had its own unique flavor and taste. It doesn't taste anything like that anymore. And I only will eat a Reese's peanut butter cup around Halloween time. I'll have one, but it tastes like shit. So I don't eat it like I used to. I used to love Reese's peanut butter cups. Not anymore.
Yeah. Well, another thing you've heard before, how they take the blood of younger people, right? And do transfusions with older people to keep them around longer, makes you age less. Well, a study finds that aging spreads through blood via HMGB1, and blocking it reverses aging damage. Holy cow, let's get into this. A groundbreaking medical survey revealed that aging may be transmitted through the bloodstream via a protein called HMGB1. When researchers blocked this protein in animal tests, they observed remarkable results. Damaged tissues began to repair themselves, and some age-related decline was reversed. The discovery suggests that aging is not simply an inevitable process of cell breakdown, but it may be influenced by specific molecular signals. If these signals can be controlled, aging could be slowed or even partially reversed. Such treatments could revolutionize medicine, offering new ways to fight disease like Alzheimer's, arthritis, organ failure, all of which are tied to aging. However, researchers caution that human trials are still far away. Hey, Mike, at least they're trying to figure out how to increase our age and not just how to reverse baldness.
No. Longevity and being able to live much longer, I think, is something that is one of the most important goals to achieve. Look, let's take a look at William Shatner, who played Captain Kirk on Star Trek. The man is 95 fucking years old, and he rides a horse, drives his own car. He's with it. He does interviews. He looks like he's in his 50s. So there is something to living a good, clean, healthy life. Look at Barbara Eden.
I'd say it looks like he's in his 70s, not his 50s, but either way.
No, he looks
good, yeah.
95, looks damn good. Hasn't really changed at all from who I was always been. And even Barbara Eden, who played I Dream of Jeannie in the 60s, she's 95 as well and still doing interviews and wants to work.
Yeah.
So, it's not beyond the realm of possibility for us to be able to do that if the science is there to back it up.
Yeah. And by the way, folks, if you're still watching the show, or we're just closing out here. If you haven't subscribed, do us a favor. We won't hurt you. We would love to have you as a regular here on Disclosure tonight. And if we look at this, yes, we have got, what is this? 275 people still watching, 101 likes. If you like the show, give us a thumbs up. We'd appreciate it, eh, Mike?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Plus, we give you a W money back guarantee.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And obviously, the cost is free, so you have nothing to lose.
Daryl, last hand up. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry about that. That must have been left over from a while ago.
No, it just popped up recently, but that's fine. Well, you just put it up again. I put it down for you. All right, on that nose. What a great show, Mike. We're a great opportunity to hang out with friends and hang out with our audience. It's always a great time here on Disclosure tonight. It's like a variety show for UFOs. Come together. We got talk. We got videos. We got a lot of stuff to get into. We got a panel of experts out there to talk about stuff. It's a great opportunity to learn and be part of the audience, be part of the chat. It's an experience in its own.
It is, and I saw a lot of the audience members throughout the show in the front chat all saying what a great show it was tonight. So, yeah, we had a good conversation. It was a lot of fun.
Gosh, yes, absolutely. And I also want to go ahead and we had a couple super chats come in tonight from the audience. Who am I talking about? Let's see who gave us some super chats tonight. We're a fan funner program. I want to thank those who go ahead and throw something into the kitty here. We got Mr. Catfish 2100, Europe. I hope you hear back from George Knapp and then Stargazer. Thank you very much. And thanks, Thomas and panel. Great show. Keep them coming, and we plan on doing that, my friends. And Mike, it's been great, and I want to thank you for being here.
Oh, it was my pleasure, and I want to thank you as well for doing this and for having Gene and Daryl and Patrick join us in the conversation today.
Patrick, say goodnight with your chicken.
This is my Henny Penny. She's, as I said, the chickens have come home to roost. If you guys have been watching, she was a little baby this summer, and unfortunately, she's the only one that survived the winter. Yeah. She wanted to say goodnight. She's been hanging out with me all night, and I finally let her in.
Well, as we usually say then, Patrick, at the end of every show, eyes open, no fear, be safe, everybody. But
go back to party Valley City where you belong.
Absolutely. We'll catch you on the flip side. Good night, everybody. See you soon. Talk to you soon.